Hey everybody, and welcome back to Box Office Breakdown. Before I get into this weekend's box office, I wanted to thank everybody who checked out last week's episode. It was my first episode. I kind of just threw the show together and put it on YouTube. Still got 6 likes, a couple subscribers. Really appreciate that. I put some more graphics into this episode, just kind of some more time. So if you like the way that the show is going, leave a comment and let me know. So let's get into this weekend's box office. This is dated June 17th, 2022. So here's our top 10, and there's really no other way to spin it besides Lightyear coming in way below projected and actually only opening in the number 2 spot. Jurassic World Dominion keeping the number 1 spot from last weekend with a 58.6 million opening. This is only down 60%, which is almost the exact same drop that Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom had, just like last week, but I'll get more into Jurassic World Dominion in a little bit. Right now I want to talk about Lightyear, which opened up in the number 2 spot at $50.5 million. When we look at the top 5 worst 3-day opening weekends for Pixar, you have Toy Story 1, which came out back in 1995 at $29.1 million, then A Bug's Life at number 2 with $33.2 million back in 1998. In the number 3 spot, you have Onward with $39.1 million back in 2020. In the number 4 spot, you got The Good Dinosaur at $39.1 million, and then at number 5 is Ratatouille with $47 million. So some good news for Lightyear is able to dodge the top 5 worst opening weekends for a Pixar movie. It actually lands in the number 7 spot. But what kind of box office show host would I be if I couldn't adjust for inflation? But instead of adjusting for inflation, I like to do something different. I like to go by the estimated tickets sold by that movie. And if we look at the top 5 worst 3-day opening weekends for a Pixar movie by estimate tickets sold, we have Onward at 4.2 million, The Good Dinosaur at 4.6 million, and here's where Lightyear enters the chart at 5.5 million. Those first 2 movies are original films, so you kind of expect them to open lower, but Lightyear is a spin-off of Toy Story. When looking at Pixar's top 5 highest grossing movies, 2 of them are Toy Story movies. And it'd be one thing if Lightyear had a modest budget, but it's reported by Variety that this film has a $200 million budget. In the number 4 spot, you have Coco with 5.6 million tickets sold, which is really close to Lightyear, and Coco actually went on to gross over $200 million, but I don't see that happening for Lightyear. I think Lightyear will actually follow closer to the number 5 spot, which is Cars 3, which opened to 5.9 million tickets sold. Cars 3 right here, and its final gross was actually $552 million, which, that's obvious. You know how many people would kill to have a movie at that number? Obviously, we got to talk about budgets, and there's no way around the fact that it's going to make less than its budget domestically, and, that's what people look at when they call something a flop. But why did this happen? It's very surprising. You would think that Pixar's, golden child brand, Toy Story, would be able to produce one of their best spin-offs. I mean, for the love of God, Monsters University opened higher back in 2013. I have a couple theories that I think could be the reason this happened. First off, I think Disney has truly conditioned its audience to knowing the animated movies will be coming to Disney Plus soon. Encanto had a theatrical release last year, and it really didn't blow up until it came on to Disney Plus that December, and the Encanto soundtrack blew up, went number 1 on the Billboard. So I think between Soul, Luca, Turning Red, even Raya came on there the same day. Disney is showing its audience, stay at home for these animated movies. They're coming on Disney Plus soon enough anyway. And you can't deny the fact that this movie is getting mixed reviews. It has 76% on Rotten Tomatoes still on the critic score, so it's fresh, and it has 85% for the audience score, so by any other movie that would be considered good, but the new Pixar movie, sometimes you expect to be a little bit more than that, and that's where a lot of this stuff comes into, is expectations and what you're expecting. This is still fine numbers. If you saw this on any other movie, you'd be like, hey, that's probably a decent movie. But when it's spun like this on some Pixar movie, you're going to get a lot of news articles that says, oh my God, it's the worst Rotten Tomatoes score for a Pixar movie. It's the worst opening weekend. That's something to be noted. We need to talk about that and say what went wrong and the reason that it's getting these scores. But at the end of the day, this isn't a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score by any means. But it did open way lower than projected, and this actually reminds me of a summer bomb a few years ago, which was unimaginable at the time. Solo: A Star Wars Story back in 2018. This movie actually opened up to $84 million back then, and at the time it was the first Star Wars movie to open under $100 million. It was the first Star Wars movie to be considered a flop, and that's kind of how we're looking at the Toy Story franchise right now with Lightyear. And there's other similarities between these movies too. They're kind of both considered unwanted sequels. And I'm not saying that they won't have their fans, but just by the general audience, you hear a lot of people saying Solo was kind of unnecessary, and that's also what I'm hearing about Lightyear. And interesting enough, these kind of go against the original actor in some way. I don't think it's malicious in the Solo way. Obviously, you couldn't bring back Harrison Ford to play a young Solo, but they still brought a new actor in to play him, and that was a big deal to a lot of people, and a lot of people weren't vibing with that. And it's kind of the same way. We're here with Chris Evans and Tim Allen. I'm hearing a lot of people say this isn't my Buzz Lightyear. This is just some random sci-fi story. A lot of people didn't even know it's in the Toy Story universe, from what I'm hearing. In some good news for Lightyear, it actually is number one in one chart in the top 5 animated opening weekends post-theater shutdown, so March 2020. It was able to open with 50.5 million, which was almost double what the number 2 spot was in Encanto back in last November, 27.2 million, Disney occupying the top 2 spots on this chart. Then, just earlier this year, The Bad Guys was able to open to 23.9 million, occupying the number 3 spot. This one's for Universal. And this one's really cool. The Demon Slayer movie last April was able to open up to 22 million. It's so cool to see anime movies starting to grow in popularity in America. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to go see the first Naruto movie in theaters, and it was like a one-day limited release showing, and I was so pissed because I couldn't go see it. Now these movies are having huge opening weekends. They're opening in 2,000 theaters plus. They're staying in theaters for multiple weeks. It's really awesome to see as an anime fan. And then in the number 5 spot, you got another Universal entry with Sing 2 at 22.3 million. So it's nice to see that Lightyear is the biggest opening weekend for an animated movie post-COVID shutdowns. So final thoughts on Lightyear. I think other movies are just kind of taking up the cultural zeitgeist right now, especially Top Gun. We'll get to that. Jurassic World, amazing that it's doing as good as it is. And Lightyear just kind of fell under the buzz. Not many people knew it was a Toy Story spinoff, and there's other movies people want to take their families to right now. I'm predicting probably about a $150-160 million domestic final number. I'm really interested in the second Minions movie now, because if that could open higher than Lightyear, make more than Lightyear domestically, I mean, imagine telling someone that 3 years ago. So moving on from Lightyear, we got Jurassic World Dominion in the number 1 spot. I know it's weird going from the number 2 to the number 1 spot, but yeah, Jurassic World Dominion was able to hold its number 1 spot with 58.6 million. It's funny, this had a 60% drop. That's almost the exact same drop as Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And if you paid attention last week, it had almost the exact same opening as Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So this movie is pretty much following the exact same trajectory as Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. You can see in the orange here, that's Jurassic World Dominion so far, and it is following Jurassic World Kingdom almost right there. It's just slightly under, and that's why I'm saying I think it'll still make just under 400 million, but there's actually talks of an extended cut coming soon, so who knows, potentially we could be getting that, and that could cross it over the 400 million mark. Funny to see how Jurassic World and the 2 sequels kind of all started around the same, but Jurassic World just blew them out of the water and made the biggest opening weekend of all time at the time. So check this out. Obviously, it was Father's Day weekend this past weekend, and 7 years ago, it was Father's Day weekend, and we have Jurassic World in its second weekend, holding almost 50%. That's a great drop for the biggest opening weekend of all time. And what's in number 2? Oh, well, Inside Out, the newest Pixar movie, where history is repeating itself. Pixar is opening to the number 2 spot when that dinosaur is holding them down. Here's a quote from Variety back when Jurassic World came out and was able to be the highest grossing opening weekend. "It inspires people to go to the movie theater," said Paul. That's a great way to talk about our next movie. So in our number 3 spot, we got Top Gun Maverick with an amazing 15% drop with $44 million. This is really starting to feel like one of those, cultural movies. Avatar, Force Awakens, Black Panther, obviously all the Avengers movies, the first Jurassic World. One of those movies that, stopped everything else and is the only movie anybody's talking about. That's why I'm so surprised Jurassic World Dominion is doing as amazing as it is. Top Gun is the only movie I'm hearing anyone talk about. As far as the future of this movie, I think the sky's the limit. It's showing no signs of slowing down. Right now, it's at 466 million. It's definitely going to break past 500 easily. It's going to go past 550 potentially, even into 600. And, we could be looking at a real top grossing movie of all time domestically. If you had told me that a month ago, even a month ago, I would have said, nah, I see it being I said it was going to be the 6th highest grossing movie this summer. This could potentially outgross Avatar domestically. Could you imagine that? Top Gun Maverick breaking records like it's nothing. This movie had the 2nd best 4th weekend of all time. I know it says American Sniper is number 1. That doesn't count because it had very limited releases the weekends before and it was able to blow up in its fucking wide release. So no, Avatar is still number 1 and Top Gun Maverick is the 2nd best 4th weekend of all time. That's beating out Force Awakens. That's beating out any MCU movie. How this is insane. And people want this movie back in IMAX. People want this back in Dolby. People want this back in 4DX. I'm hearing my parents want to go see this movie in 4DX. They haven't been to the movies in forever. People want to see this movie, and they want to see it in the biggest screen and best way possible. So I would not be surprised if this thing comes back into IMAX later on in the summer once Thor is gone. There's a little bit of a dip in July, and this movie is going to be probably still in theaters in July. So I imagine that it's going to get that re-release in IMAX or Dolby and 4DX, and that's going to drive up ticket sales once again. And in an interview which came out today from Paramount Chief of Streaming Tom Green, he talks about how the 45-day window has been the normal since the pandemic started, but they haven't even started thinking about the theatrical window for Top Gun Maverick yet, and that just shows it's going to be in theaters for a long time. They're not even thinking about when this is going to go in theaters, and that's the right way to do it. If it has the second best fourth weekend of all time in the box office, you shouldn't even be thinking about home media or streaming. You need to be focusing in on that box office, and that is exactly what they're doing, and that's why it's going to just keep growing, and that's why Paramount is taking this huge win. And speaking of Paramount taking a huge win, let's look at their highest grossing movies of all time. You got Titanic here in the number one spot with $2.2 billion. And, it was funded by Paramount, but it also had Fox with them. So, this wasn't 100% Paramount. It was funded by Fox Paramount, and it was distributed by Fox Paramount. So, out of movies that are 100% Paramount, you got Transformers: The Dark of the Moon at number one with $1.1 million. And Top Gun Maverick is probably going to blow past that. I genuinely think Top Gun Maverick could be the highest grossing movie in Paramount history. And it's really no surprise that Paramount was having some struggles the last couple years. After Transformers kind of fell off and started flopping, they really didn't have much. They had Snake Eyes come out last year, and that didn't do shit. So, after Scream, then The Lost City, then Sonic, and now Top Gun Maverick, they have literally been on a crescendo of just excellence in their box office performance. Just finishing off the rest of the box office weekend, we got Doctor Strange here with a 15% drop. That's a really good hold, actually. That's the best hold it's had in its entire run. It's been dropping 60, 48, 50, 43, 43, and then 15 out of nowhere. All the other movies besides Lightyear, obviously since it's new, had great holds this weekend, and that could have honestly been part of the reason Lightyear opened kind of low, is a lot of these movies are still in demand, and people are still going out to see them, and they had great holds. This chart here is Captain America Civil War's domestic performance versus Doctor Strange 2 domestic performance, and you can see they were just going back and forth a couple times here, but it's actually looking like Doctor Strange is going over Captain America and could potentially outgross it domestically, and it's kind of funny that this is how it's going like this. These two movies are kind of similar. They're solo movies, but they're big event movies, just like how Captain America Civil War was. Captain America finished off its domestic run with $408 million domestically, and Doctor Strange is at $405 domestically, and just this last weekend it was able to bring in another $4.4 million, so I think there's pretty damn good chance it's going to pass Captain America Civil War. And just to finish off the rest of this weekend, you got Bob's Burgers here at number 5. This is its fourth weekend. It's doing alright. Kind of disappointed with this movie, as I said last week. I put it at the number 10 spot in my highest grossing movies of the summer, and it is definitely not going to be there. Downton Abbey has grossed over it. It's over here at $42.1 million. It's pretty incredible for Downton Abbey, honestly, but less than half of what that last one made just 3 years ago. So obviously that audience is not going back to the theaters like they were just 3 years ago. Everything Everywhere All at Once over here at $64 million, almost $1 million weekend again. That's just, obviously it's been said well before I started this show, the box office anomaly that this movie is. It's doing absolutely incredible. I love to see it because this is one of my favorites of the year. And what I'm starting to see in this post-COVID world, or maybe I'm just starting to notice it more, is word of mouth matters. If movies are getting, terrible word of mouth, I mean, Jurassic World, I shouldn't really count that, but Top Gun Maverick, this movie is getting amazing word of mouth. It's working. It's doing its job at the box office. Doctor Strange, got kind of mixed reviews. It wasn't able to make $1 billion around the world. I think that kind of contributed to it. So word of mouth is, a factor more than ever right now. All right, and just to finish this off, we got the top 2022 movies at the domestic box office. You got Lightyear here debuting at the 15th spot, respectable, but if it makes, let's say, about $150 million domestically, we're looking, to pass. I think there's a good chance it could pass Uncharted domestically, but Sonic 2, I don't think it's going to pass Sonic 2. I think Sonic 2 will outgross Lightyear. And imagine going back 3 years ago, the summer of 2019. You got Toy Story 4 making over $1 billion, and you got the internet going apeshit over Sonic's ugly design. Now imagine telling yourself there that Sonic 2 is going to outgross the first Toy Story spin-off in theaters. It's a fucking mad world. All right, and that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for continuing to support. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep continuing adding new graphics every week, adding different ways to show numbers, because I love just showing the actual website. I always use the website, the numbers. I love to, just show you the hard, cold numbers. But at the same time, if I have the time, with some of these, I think a graphics would look better, like I was doing earlier today. So if you like that, please leave a comment, leave a like. Tell me what you enjoy from the show. Tell me what you think I should add on to. I really want to go more into international numbers. I had a lot written about Lightyear internationally, but sadly just kind of ran out of time. You got to upload this before that weekend goes too far into the week. So as of right now, when I'm kind of ironing things out, I'm going to be missing a couple things, but just stick with me, and hopefully we can continue to grow this show into something awesome. And until next week, I will see you later.